It's been 6 months since the release of the Canon R5, and I was one of the lucky ones to have mine arrive in the first order. Since then, it has been my full-time use camera system for both photo and video. So here is my 6-month review of the Canon R5. Run the intro. Our location for this video is Brisbane, the capital of Queensland, Australia, and Queensland's biggest city. It's a city that also offers a lot of diversity, like you've got the city that you can see behind me, the CBD, the Story Bridge as a great icon, and Roma Street Parklands. We're actually going to be filming the rest of this video review. So without further ado, let's get straight into the review. 4 months ago, I did a 2-month review of the camera, and there were a number of people who asked questions relating specifically to the camera, so I have shared the answers to those at the end of this video, so make sure you stay to the end for that. There are also timestamps in the description down below so that you can skip through to any parts that interest you or other parts that may not. With that stuff out of the way, let's get into the camera and why this has been the perfect camera system for me. One thing that was important to me in the camera were the ergonomics. As I have slightly bigger hands and feel more comfortable with a slightly bigger camera body, then the ergonomics of this were perfect for me. The deep grip was easy and the button placement was great, meaning I can control the majority of the camera functions with what I need from literally one hand. It's brilliant and quick. I don't want to have to think about changing camera settings, I just want to do it. The muscle memory transition was quick and easy, considering before I used Fujifilm cameras, I was a Canon full-frame shooter. In getting this camera, the body has excellent features, of course, but when you buy a camera, it's not just the camera you're buying, unless it's a point and shoot. But when you buy this camera, you're buying into a system. Most of you watching this video will most likely understand this already, but in the system, the lenses are what oftentimes make the biggest difference. There will be a coming review on this, but the holy trinity of RF lenses are excellent. I decided to invest in the 15-35, the 24-70, and the 70-200, this one, 2.8s from the beginning. And if you're looking at getting into the R5 system, aim to be getting these types of lenses, as the quality is simply exceptional and will give you the best value from your camera. A feature that was popular in the announcement of the camera was IBIS, or in-body image stabilization. And in practical use, it's brilliant, especially with RF lenses. All of them except the 15-35, which even after a few firmware updates, still gives a pretty significant wobble when filming video. So vloggers, that might be a bit of a pain for you. When I film video, unless on a tripod, I stick pretty much exclusively to the 24-70 as it works without issue. Apart from that, handheld slow shutter speed images are great and filming handheld is made much easier. Now, I still wish there was a way to turn the IBIS off in the menu system, so Canon, if you are listening, please make that something that could be incorporated into a firmware update. Speaking of the sensor, an issue of some controversy was how good the low light capabilities would be, considering the 45 megapixel sensor. As a former owner of an original Canon 6D, known for its low light capability, I have to say that this is better than what I found on that camera. Of course, there is still some noise when shooting above ISO 6400, but you can get usable results with ISO 12800. You will get better low light performance from the R6, so if you shoot events for a living, then that may be the better option. For general use and not always shooting in the dark, the camera is brilliant. When talking Canon cameras, there will always be a mention of the autofocus system. Dual pixel AF is fast, responsive, and very accurate in acquiring its subject. Especially now with face and eye detection for humans and animals, I've been really impressed with it and it's accurate. I would say that about 95% of the time, even in low light conditions, it's still super fast and responsive with a tiny bit of hit and miss, but in general, I would call it superb. When you add everything up that I've just said and hear about how the hardware performs, it's pretty safe to say that the expectation of the final image quality is pretty high. And if that's what you're thinking, you're right. Of course, the lenses used certainly aids in creating the best final result possible in terms of sharpness and quality. Even processing the images, with the file sizes around 50 megabytes, it's still pretty fast to process, depending on the hardware you use too. The files have pretty wide dynamic range and a lot of latitude with colors. Even if you pull the luminance down on the blue channels, it still holds together pretty well in most circumstances. And for those of you that don't know, pulling the blue luminance down in the color channel is a pretty hard test for most raw files in post-processing. And here's a shameless plug. If you want to speed up your editing workflow, I have a set of 35 Lightroom presets available featuring edits from my travels from Australia and the world. Link below. One of the biggest marketed strengths of this camera is the video capability. Marketed and delivered with 8K RAW video and downsampled 4K HQ mode, as well as 4K 120 frames per second in C-Log, the hype created great expectations with photographers and videographers alike. As a hybrid shooter myself, it was one of the features I really wanted to see come to fruition. At first, there was a big thing about the overheating, and I have to say, as an early adopter, the overheating did get to be a bit of a pain in the butt. However, with firmware updates, this has improved, and for my needs, I don't have issues with overheating. Now, mainly when I film, it's either in 4K HQ at 24 or 25 frames per second, and often B-roll, it's in 4K 60 or 4K 50 in C-Log for short bursts. I'm not often filming long interviews or really long form content. If I did have to do that, I will just switch to the regular 4K mode rather than HQ, as I know I can record for much longer periods with that setting in one go. Does the regular 4K look a bit softer than 4K HQ? Yes, slightly. If you do shoot in that regular mode though, I always do just a little bit of sharpening in post-processing, and the difference is not really noticeable. I actually switched to filming this piece on the video functions in regular 4K. And if you haven't noticed a difference between what was filmed earlier and now, then it's not an issue. In the 2-month review, my biggest issue with the video was the post-production of it.
There is, however, a downside to the video, and that is the new codec that Canon has used for 10-bit C-Log. H.265 is incredibly hard for pretty much every computer to decode, which means editing the direct footage can be pretty painful.
I own an iMac Pro with really good specs, and when I would try and edit the 4K C-Log footage, the H.265 codec would cause the computer to crash, like literally just shut down. I almost pulled my hair out in frustration. But now though, the issue has been solved. The M1 chips that Apple has introduced into the market has been a literal game changer for editing video, especially when using a laptop. I ended up purchasing the M1 MacBook Pro with 16 gig RAM, switched to using Final Cut Pro as it's optimized for the chip, really love using that now, and seriously, the change has been fantastic for my workflow. I can import, edit, color grade, add graphics, effects without an issue, all while the computer runs fast. It's fantastic. This is something to keep in mind, that if you are using an Intel-based computer, then getting the R5 to film video will most likely demand something like the Apple M1 chip, simply because it decodes the footage properly. Now, in saying that though, the quality of the footage in the end result is simply excellent. I've seen an increase in the quality of my work, and the color and clarity of the footage has been excellent. Dynamic range is not really the highest. I think it's like 11 to 13 stops if we're lucky. However, the resulting image is what really counts, and I've always been pleased with what is created. Now let's answer a few of your questions. Remember, if you're enjoying this video, hit that like button, and if you're not, click dislike twice. So first, what camera matching profile do I use in Lightroom? I use the Adobe standard presets, and that's basically just to edit the colors to suit my style. And using that as a base, I then go in and make my tweaks and all that sort of stuff. Second, what video codecs are easy to edit? What video modes do you most often use? I think I've answered most of that question pretty well already. In terms of what is easy to edit, when you're not filming in C-Log, it's much easier to edit the final footage. It's an 8-bit file rather than a 10-bit, but overall, still good quality. And if you want to do a quick edit, or if you're not comfortable with C-Log and color grading, then you'll still see great results. So third, can the camera be used in cold weather conditions? Yes, it can be used in cold weather. It's like any other camera. It'll probably affect the battery life a bit more, drain it a bit quicker, but overall, it's still a weather sealed body. If you use weather sealed lenses, then that will help and aid as well. So fourth, please share your settings. I want to know how to change your dial and autofocus changing. So to change the dial, go to the orange section, page 3, customize dials, and select the top rear dial and change that to AF or AF mode. Then you can use the back thumb dial to change your AF mode from face tracking to single point, etc. It's really fast, really great way to actually use the camera, at least in my experience. Lastly, please share your LUTs you're using. So I use the Canon standard LUTs for video from the EOS R to assist in just bringing the C-Log footage back to more of a Rec 709. For photo editing, I use my own presets. Again, link in the description down below. I hope that you've found this video of benefit in making a choice of whether or not to go with the Canon R5 as your primary or even secondary camera. If you did enjoy it, hitting that like button and subscribing with the bell icon is really appreciated. It helps to keep this type of content coming for you and others that may find it helpful. It has been a bit of a journey with getting used to the new camera and working out the best way to work with the files. But now that I have it sorted, it's an exceptional system and I feel very confident in everything I create with it. Now, while you're here, check out this video that you may enjoy.